Talk Black TV.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Welcome back to the program. Welcome back to Top Black TV. If you're new to the channel or the channel's new to you, please do like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to smash that notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever Top Black TV drops another video. Well, there's one thing when white people look on you until they say, stop talking about racism. Stop putting so much emphasis on discrimination. And just pick up yourself by your boots and move along. That's one thing. When you own black people, I will tell you, say, there's no such thing as racism, and them never experience racism. Make you have to scratch your head and ask yourself, which world them living in? Man like Morgan Freeman, as old as him is, I can talk like racism don't exist. All the one Lil Wayne, him say, him never experienced racism in all of him life. Coming like him never see it yet. I hear about it. Anyways, let's take a look at the clip. I'll give you my 2 cents as we go along. And then I'll wrap it up with 2 clips. One from a racism experiment and other from an ex-cop. This is
Talk Black TV.
Do you think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't or
Today?
cannot? Yeah.
No,
You don't?
no, I don't. Hey, you and I, we're proof. Why would race have anything to do with it? Put your mind to what you want to do and go for that. It's kind of like religion to me. It's a good excuse for not getting there.
how many black-owned movie company in Hollywood? How many black producer you work with? How many black directors you work with? There was examples long before you in a black Wall Street, and it's racism will burn that down, and it's racism will keep down black people, will keep black people from rising back to that level.
Where are we in the United States of America in race relations and what you see from day to day in your life?
Skip, they wouldn't want to ask me that. They wouldn't want my answer to represent it because God knows I have been nothing but blessed. My whole path, these 33 years have been nothing but a blessing. I have never, and never is a strong word, I've never dealt with racism, and I'm glad I didn't have to.
You swim in a shark-infested water. What you think, say? You swim with dolphin or goldfish.
There is a class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. There is a certain class of race problem solvers who don't want the patient to get well.
Well, there's a certain class of colored people who make a business of hiding the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of black people from the public. Some of these people want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. It's a certain class of race problem solvers that want the patient to pretend it is better.
How are we going to get rid of racism until...
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop calling a white man. I know more you do for me. I want you to stop calling me black man. Seen? I see after this, I don't want to hear nothing more about racism.
You know, it's frustrating to me that people take race and they make it personal. You know what I mean? Like we're at a loss in this generation. If you look at it in the 80s, Archie Bunker was a stark racist. Stark. If you don't know who Archie Bunker is, look him up. All in the Family, great show.
You heard him.
The Jeffersons, stark racist. Fred Sanford, stark racist. But you know what black people and white people did? They laughed. You watch 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. Both of them hated each other because he was black and because he was white. You know what they did? They laughed.
Little Rascals. Hilarious. Stark racism. But who did the laughing? Who write them show that? Stark racist? I mean, who you think find buckwheat for me?
What the racial breakdown was of your audience. Do you remember this? You told me the only black face you could see in the whole audience was your makeup artist. I believe that's what you said, and she was in the front row, right? A lot of white kids love rap.
Yes.
Explain that. What does that say to you? What's the message of it? What's the bigger picture of it?
I don't want to be bashed because I don't want to sound like I'm on the wrong if there is a side, but I thought that was clearly a message that there was no such thing as racism. That's what I thought that was.
It seems like every single day on television I'm talking about race, and it's because of the news cycle. It's in the news, but sometimes I get so tired of talking about it. I want to just go, this is over. Can we move on?
And stop talking about it. If you talk about it, it exists. If you talk about it, it exists.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like it exists. It's not like it exists and we refuse to talk about it. But making it a bigger issue than it needs to be is the problem we have. Stop talking about it.
Using wrong examples to present an argument leads us nowhere forward. I understand the emotion, and I respect my opposition, but when you go into the areas of making false charges and living in the past, you do not address the issues of the present.
You don't know your past, you won't know your future. You don't know your past, you won't know your future. Come on, if you don't have the courage to face your past, how the hell you think you're going to face your present, let alone your future? Come on.
And, you know, incarceration rates in America has been a problem, especially as opposing minorities. And Roman delves into the issues around the legal system. Do you think we've made any headway in the legal system?
I think it's more important to make headway in our own house. By the time the system comes into play, the damage is done. They're not locking up 7-year-olds.
Denzel, or Denzel, whatever you want to call it yourself. If the system kick in for them father, and them father, that means the system kick in for them long before me even born.
I was in Chicago a couple of 3-4 weeks ago, and we saw these little kids on bikes with masks on the side of their head, like 5 or 6 of them. And the driver said, yeah, they're little yummies. I said, who? He said, little yummies. Look up, Google Lil Yummy. Lil Yummy was an 11-year-old murderer.
Wow.
And you look at his picture, you'll see the headshot of him, and he's like this. And he got murdered at 11 by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Who's doing life now, and a 16-year-old.
That makes no sense.
You blame the system?
Denzel, or Denzel, whatever you want to call yourself. Or the system create the breeding ground for little yummies. How come there's no little yummies in a Rosedale? How come no little yummies no come out of your neighborhood? You don't just drive by and look through your window and Google to know about little yummies.
Where was his father?
No one wants to talk about perception when it comes to racial profiling. No one wants to talk about stereotypes when it comes to racial profiling.
Racial profiling, stereotyping. That's the same shit that was so hilarious about Archie Bunker and the Jeffersons. Stark racism. So first we want to laugh about it, but now we want to talk about it. So you want to talk about it and then laugh about it, or laugh about it and then talk about it?
Blacks are convinced that the #1 issue facing the country right now is social justice, racist white cops, discrimination, systemic racism, microaggression, whatever new word they come up with, and it's a bunch of nonsense.
If you, as a white person, would be happy to receive the same treatment that our black citizens do in this society, please stand. You didn't understand the direction.
This is what I know. I'm a certified scuba diver. My first day of class, they told me this. When you're in shark-infested waters, everything in that water is considered a threat until proven otherwise. If it's a guppy, it could be a shark until you know it's a guppy. And I think as black men, we need to realize we're in shark-infested waters. And if we don't sit our young men down and we don't talk to them about perception, if we don't talk to them about stereotypes, we're doing them a huge disservice.
You swim in a shark-infested water. What you think, say? You swim with dolphin or goldfish.
It starts in the house. It starts in the home. And yeah, well, my father got locked up. Well, where was his father?
Yeah.
You know, like I did talk about my 3 closest friends, and they did, 15 to 25. One did 28, this and that. I was the only one of the 3 that had a father in my life, even though my parents were together. But I still had a father who was a gentle man and a good example, and they didn't. We can blame the system if we want, but they didn't lock any of us up at 7.
Yeah.
We were all doing enough to get locked up. At 13, my parents sent me in another direction. They didn't have anybody to help them, and they kept doing what they was doing. And the system got them so, I don't, the system is rigged. The system is rigged, but why, all the more reason not to help it.
That slip out of your mouth. You never want to say the system rigged. Rigged against all.
Help it.
The #1 problem domestically facing this country is a breakdown of the family. And President Obama said it. I didn't. A black kid, or kid, not just a black kid, a kid raised without a dad is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crimes, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. So you're far more likely to end up in jail without having a dad than you are because of a white racist cop.
That's it. Case closed.
Well, I got pulled over by the police, come over to my window, flash his light in my face, hand on my pistol. I can handle that 2 ways. I can start yelling and screaming and tell him he a racist and he don't know me. You doing this wrong. Or I can say, yes, officer, no, officer, or we done, officer. And both of them are going to have drastically different outcomes.
So what about all the times when we do cooperate? We do say, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. And still get kick and thump, still get fling to the floor, still get shot, still get a knee to the neck. What the heck?
Half the homicides in this country are committed by and against black people. Last year, there were 14,000 homicides, not talking about suicides, I'm talking about homicides. Half of them were black, 96% of them black on black of that 7,000. Where's the Black Lives Matter people on that?
That's it. Case closed.
What happens with young black men, everything is susceptible to the question of your manhood. And what's going on in these streets ain't got nothing to do with my manhood.
Interesting.
If I'm gonna fight a police, I'm gonna fight him in a controlled environment, a court of law. I'm not gonna fight him on the streets.
Isn't it ironic that it is the black man's manhood that the system tries to break on a daily basis, whether that be on the streets or in the courts?
In Baltimore, where Freddie Gray was killed, Freddie Gray died in a van. I shouldn't say was killed, died in a van.
Yeah.
You have a city that's 45% black. City council is 100% Democrat. The majority of city council is black. The top cop at the time was black. The #2 cop was black. The majority of the command staff is black. The mayor is black. The AG is black. And yet here we are talking about racism. I mean, it's absurd.
Oh, that's it. Case closed.
All cops aren't bad cops. 99% of cops are really good dudes and women. 99% of the people I've met that are cops are dope. I have a lot of friends that are cops, but that 1%, that's the problem. And you want to give yourself every opportunity not to end up a statistic.
So wouldn't that mean weeding out, getting rid of that 1%? And how do you know it's only 1%? you do admit that that 1%, if you run into them, you could become a statistic.
965 people were shot by cops last year and killed. 4% of them were white cops shooting unarmed blacks. In Chicago, 21 people were shot and killed by cops. In 2015, there were 7. In Chicago, which is a third black, a third white, and a third Hispanic, 70% of the homicides are black on black. About 40 per month, almost 500 per year last year in Chicago, and 75% of them are unsolved. Where is the Black Lives Matter on that? The idea that a racist white cop and shooting unarmed black people is a peril to black people is BS.
Case closed.
Black History Month you find
ridiculous.
Why?
You're going to relegate my history to a month?
Oh, come on.
What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month.
That was subtle racism at its finest. The Jew asked the black man in astonishment why he's not thrilled about celebrating his history for 1 month out of the year.
You find...
When all the while, himself would not want a Jewish holiday 1 month out of the year.
No.
Let alone the shortest month out of the year.
No.
Who set that holiday anyways?
Abraham Lincoln, as my colleague said, fought a war to preserve the Union. That republic allowed for the people of the United States, under our Constitution, to amend it, therefore removing slavery.
Slavery was abolished. But the 13th Amendment said, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States or any place subject to this jurisdiction, except as punishment for crime, wherefore the party has been duly convicted. So you look at war on drugs, the 3-strike rule, stop and frisk, which negatively affect the black community disproportionately. Put that with the fact that the police system was created as a cat slave system and still operate under the same system. One uncle have to criminalize the black man and bam, slavery all over again.
At the same time, and you would say it as strong as anyone, it's no excuse for bombing and destroying your own neighborhood and burning down wherever it's happening. Burning down storefronts and stores that people
with mobs is how they get turned into that.
Yeah.
What's to be gained? You know, you stop for 1 split second to think. Burning and looting doesn't help you in any way.
Ask the people who burn down Black Wall Street how it benefit them to do that. If you never burn down Black Wall Street and have them knee in a black people neck ever since then, you think black people would be looting right now? Where we get that from? Who will learn that from? So now that we hear from the victims of racism, let's hear from the perpetrators' point of view. This is
Top Black TV.
If you, as a white person, would be happy to receive the same treatment that our black citizens do in this society, please stand. You didn't understand the directions. If you white folks want to be treated the way blacks are in this society, stand. Nobody's standing here. That says very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you're so willing to accept it or to allow it to happen for others.
I'm going to speak very black and white because, let's be honest, it's a black and white issue. I want to take you to the book of Exodus, chapter 1, and I wanted to share a little bit of what took place prior to the rise of Moses. When I read that, it talked about that the Pharaoh became concerned and very fearful that the Hebrew slaves were growing in number and in power. So in order to maintain their oppression, he put upon them great labor. He put upon the Hebrew slaves cruelty to keep them down. However, they still grew. And so he brought together some midwives, and he instructed them that when a Hebrew boy was born, kill him. Well, these midwives did not follow, and the Hebrew slaves continued to grow. Eventually, the Pharaoh became so hatred towards those Hebrew slaves that he made a decree. He put out an order that male baby boy Hebrew slaves were to be killed by casting them into the Nile River. Let's look at America. We brought blacks into this country as slaves. We never intended them to be anything other than a slave. But they began to grow in number and in power, and eventually they fought their way to some freedom. So we became even more cruel, and to keep our black Americans down, we lynched. But yet they rose. So then we used the welfare system, the criminal justice system, to keep them down, to contain them, to destroy them. But yet they rose, and they're rising. Then we built prisons and jails to hold them. Yet they rose. And so now we are doing exactly what the Pharaoh did at the end, sending out a decree: kill him.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
So until we admit that when we wrote this Constitution that all men are created equal, that we never intended to include our black brothers and sisters. We never intended to include our black brothers and sisters. Our nation may end up facing exactly what the Egyptians faced when they refused to let God's people go. Let God's people go. Let God's people go. So I'm going to say this to my white fellow Americans, that the bloodshed that is on its way is not on the hands of our fellow black Americans, but is on our hands. We are the ones that are refusing to let God's people go. We are the ones that are refusing to acknowledge that we do not value our black brothers and sisters as equal individuals or equal Americans as us white men. And to my black brothers and sisters, the racial issues, as I've said, have been there from the very foundation. But why do we see it more? Because there's a shifting. See, us white men have been at the head since the foundation. But we've had a black president. And you know, we've done everything in our power to keep him from really changing things. Now we have another minority rising to the top, a white female. What does that say? Those of us who are white men who have been at the head are now starting to see and fear that we are going to become the tail. And we know what we've done to you.
Stop talking about it.
And so now we're fearful that you're going to do to us what we have done to you. But I will say this. I've lived in a black community for 23 years. I've never been treated the way that this country has treated my black Americans.
Stop talking about it.
So I call out my white Americans to say we better heed, repent, acknowledge, and change. Because if we don't, I just want to again say this: the bloodshed that we will experience is on our hands, not the hands of our fellow black Americans.
Stop talking about it. It's a good excuse for not getting there.
Talk Black TV.
How are we going to get rid of racism until...
Stop talking about it.
Sometimes I get so tired of talking about it. I want to just go, this is over. Can we move on?
And stop talking about it.
You know, it's frustrating to me that people take race and they make it personal.
Stop talking about it.
Stark racist. But you know what black people and white people did?
Stop talking about it. Making it a bigger issue than it needs to be is the problem we have. Stop talking about it.
Using wrong examples to present an argument leads us nowhere forward.
Stop talking about it.
Discrimination, systemic racism, microaggression, whatever new word they come up with, and it's a bunch of nonsense.
Stop talking about it.
As black men, we need to realize we're in shark-infested waters.
Stop talking about it.
I don't. The system is rigged. The system is rigged.
Stop talking about it.
I thought that was clearly a message that there was no such thing as racism.
Stop talking about it.